Peace, everybody. This is Butta Beats from Nomadic Massive, welcoming you to Autres Langues. As we make our way towards Nomadic Massive's 20th anniversary, we thought it was important to highlight some of the individuals and communities that helped shape and inform hip-hop culture and continue to inspire us to this day. I'm here with my co-hosts Waahli, aka Walisha Keys, Lou Piensa, aka Sunset Lou, and Ali Sepu, aka Ali Veda. You're now part of the Universal Superfam. Let's go!
Hold on. Pardon me, sir, did you say something?
Ladies and gentlemen.
Hold on.
What the hell are you talking about?
Hold on.
Pero si ya hemos empezado.
What's up, everybody? We'd like to welcome you to another episode of Autres Langues, where we're celebrating the past, present, and the future, moving forward towards Nomadic's 20th anniversary. We're here with, honestly, family. I go by the name Butta Beats, otherwise known as Botswana. You know what I mean? Check Narcy's phone. That's
I wanted to know.
Right, we got my man Walisha Keys over here to my left. Got Loopy, aka Sunset Lou, aka you got to put some yellow in your life, dog.
That's right.
We got the boa constrictor, the boa life, the Ali Dua Vida, Ali Sepu, and then another sister from another mister, huh? The one and only Meryem Saci, and the brother from another mother, Narcy. How you guys doing?
We're good. I see what you guys did here, huh?
Yeah.
I see. You put the two like Arabic characters together.
There's some
just
kind of a
like-
thematic
But
thing.
there's a
there.
It's like-
thematic thing going on here, I
Yeah,
think, right?
I
Yeah.
see it.
Am I
It's
imagining?
very ethnocentric.
Oh, thank you. Message.
Message.
This is where we're going, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, that's it.
What's up, fam?
So today we're just gonna, we're gonna talk about a couple of things, but I'll just start the questions. Relaxed conversation about a lot of things.
I've been through this before.
Kick your feet up.
At Borders. That's how it starts.
That's how it starts, right? Yeah. So I guess the first thing, the general themes that we're talking about, is a lot of it has to do with hip hop. Your upbringing, how you fell in love with hip hop, and stuff like that. So I'll just start this off. Either one of you can answer. Whoever's down. What was your first significant hip hop experience, and where were you geographically?
Yeah, I think mine is probably more obscure than yours.
Why do you say that? Because I'm jiggy like that?
Because you were already in the first world at that time.
Yeah, okay. First
Connected
world.
to the first
Uh-oh.
world.
I'm from another world.
I know.
Charged. He's getting charged already.
Yeah. What do you mean first?
Can't do podcasts anymore.
You gotta-
What? What'd you say? I heard what you
mean
really
by
said.
that? Nah, it's really simple. My first encounter was Old Dirty Bastard on the track of Mariah Carey, Fantasy.
Amazing.
And I discovered hip hop through R&B in a sense, right? So, or pop at that time.
Yeah, in the 90s was like the
90s
two
vibe.
things were.
Yeah, and
so
in
close.
Algeria, we didn't have access to that much underground stuff. So it was only what was mainstream that we were able to hack from French channels type thing. Otherwise, my real encounter that was significant for me was with listening to actually Algerian hip hop in Algeria before I came to Canada. And I heard it in our language, in the Derja, and which was something I've never even thought was possible.
Yeah.
Because I had heard it in English, I heard it in French, never in our language. And talking about what we were going through at the time. So that was like about 98, 99. I left Algeria in 2000. And it was literally like the last year that I got really into it, knowing it exists. And I started to be interested to know what other rappers existed in Algeria. And I learned, that was the first track I learned by heart. It was rap. Et c'était l'artiste, l'autre fille, Double Canon.
Double Canon.
Double Canon,
Yeah, your
papa.
accent became more like Algerian. Like,
Double Canon.
Oh, no.
Non, mais c'est ça, c'était la première fois. Why am I talking in French now, guys?
It's okay.
That's all
This is what we're doing. We're celebrating.
Long, by Nomadic
Live
Massive.
it up.
Know what I mean? Autres Langues.
in the flesh.
That's it.
Non, mais c'est ça. That was it. That was really my first real significant encounter.
Man, for me, it was like a flood. It happened all in like 2 months of my life. I think it was like 91, 92, 93, at some point in that period. But I would go to Nawad's house, and his brother would come from Wildwood with tapes that were just labeled like Tony Touch, Hot 90, like whatever radio station it was. So I was hearing songs, but I didn't know who it was, what it was. But I'd say the most tangible experience for me was Old Dirty Bastard, the album.
Look at us now.
Brooklyn Zoo.
Yeah. The first record, like, and I remember the CD and the feel of like getting that out, because I had already been listening to Nirvana and shit like that, but to have that in my hand is like one of the most formative moments.
In Montreal, right?
I think I was in Face. Yeah, I was a Face. I was 13, so like 95, 96. Yeah, man. And then Method Man, and then 36 Chambers, and then just like
the dominoes.
Yeah,
So
it was
what
a
was like the
huge
canvas?
domino. Yeah.
I remember you telling a story about that 36 Chambers tape. Something that was left in right after a party that your sister had.
Yeah, so when we left Abu Dhabi, right, shout out to Hela, who was the narcissist, or the original source of all things narcissist.
Holla.
Because this world is a woman. So yeah, I mean, I remember we were going to Abu Dhabi. My father just was like, yo, I gotta move. I got a job in Abu Dhabi. We have to leave. It was a tough period in the mid 90s for my parents, I think, with the Gulf War and everything with work. And she had a going away party, and somebody left the 36 Chambers tape in my dad's hi-fi system. And I took that tape and took it on the plane. So it was like all a part of that, like, Russia hip-hop, you know? Wu-Tang forever.
So, you know, you've established sort of like your fandom. You know, like, yo, this is amazing. Like, when was it that you were like, oh, I could partake in this. I could be somebody in this.
When I realized I was a gangster rapper at 16.
Exactly.
You remember that verse?
I remember, I do. I think it starts, goes back up in you once again. All alone, you ain't got no friends. Run you over with the Benz. I sends you running and I'm gunning or something. I was like 14.
Right.
15. You know?
I think we all started with a gangster verse.
Yeah, it was always
Let's be
gangster
honest.
first. We had to get it out,
Right.
you know?
Thanks to Face.
Like stab the paper.
But like I knew I could make music when I moved back to Canada. Otherwise it was just bedroom shit in Abu Dhabi. There was no place to put it, you know? There was no internet. So when I came back to Canada and like started recording with Noah 2000, then we got in the studio like 2001, but didn't put out music till 2003.
Yeah, me, it was different because I was singing first, right? So I started writing songs and mostly within the melody frame, very, very young. And I wanted to write in English by any means necessary. So I did what we called yaourt for a long time, which is like, it's not really a language, but it sounds like it. Remember nonsensical rhymes?
Yeah.
2 bars of nonsensical words.
Yeah. So, but it came to me for actually the rap portion. It was like secretly brewing inside of me after hanging out a lot more with MCs and starting to record and collaborate with MCs ever since I was 16. And I was like a really, really huge fan of Dead Prez. And I would listen to them in my room like, this flow is crazy. I really want to unlock it. Like I want to see if I can do this, you know? And also it was like teaching me a lot when it came to English language. So for me to drill certain verses was also for me to practice my pronunciation and to just like be able to have better diction when I sing as well. And I found that rap was really good at, you know, like making me drill that more than singing secretly. Nobody knew for a long time. And then I started writing a lot of sing raps, which we call sing raps because it sounds like...
Which is now called the Drake.
Which now is the Drake, and now it's totally like a genre where rappers, what is it, like rapper chants or whatever. But yeah, I was doing a lot of that, and even you guys used to be like, yo, there's a lot of words, and it's like, just hold the melody.
This is true.
So,
We all started with a lot of words, though.
yeah, I started with a lot of words. That was a big challenge. I had a lot to say, didn't know how to shoop. But yeah, flow-wise was the thing that got me into feeling like, you know what, I could maybe do this. Because flow came to me naturally, but the language didn't at first, you know, at least to feel legit in it. And I knew how to speak French, but it was just different. It didn't speak to me the same way. Like hip-hop came to me in English first, even though Algeria spoke to me for a quick second within it. Everything else was all American hip-hop or Canadian hip-hop too. I got like super into like Canadian hip hop for a while.
Why'd you giggle with that?
Because like for me, it's just American hip hop.
What Canadian hip hop did you get into?
From back in the day, like I don't know why, but to me they were all like one. From Algeria, it looked like one. You know.
I told my friends when I moved to Canada, I was moving to the States.
To me, it was America.
Wow.
I'm like, j'habite en Amérique, you know.
America.
And Amérique du Nord for me was like the
system.
US, you know.
Milk and honey.
It really was. It was like Rascals or like Cardinal, of course.
You know,
and
Chaclair.
Chaclair.
The Circle.
The Circle.
Listen, the Circle, all of them.
Yeah.
And honestly, there was like the Van Boys, like Van City Boys as well. Like I was listening a lot to Vancouver rappers.
Yeah.
Swollen members.
All the individual members, Chaos, obviously. But yeah, slowly but surely got into that scene knowing it's possible right here next to us.
Right.
And then rolling with actual like underground rappers that were not yet doing it or hitting the stage like that, felt like, okay, maybe I have something to do in this world as well beyond singing, you know? But it's really slowly but surely, and then I rolled with Nomadic. I was still secretly rapping, nobody knew, and I just didn't have the confidence for the longest time. But Royal Peasants is the one that started pushing me into that direction, and my first rap ever was Touch It, Bring It, Babe, with your dirty, leave it, Nomadic. And I got convinced to actually drop on it because Mary J did.
The interesting thing is, like you mentioned that track, you also mentioned Dead President. I'm thinking right away of hip hop.
Yeah.
That was bigger than hip hop, which has that, you know, that double time flow. But Dead President's not a random album either. That's not a random, like content wise.
Nah,
you're
all
not
the
just
albums.
grabbing the flow from.
Yeah,
that.
but like I started with RBG, like
Right,
the
okay.
first, you know, a revolutionary but gangster, and it was also like to discover the connection with Erykah Badu. Obviously, you know, like that was a huge thing. I listened to Mos Def a lot, so I loved those rappers that could sing as well. They could bring that melodic touch into their flow, and they could like, hold on a hook as well, you know. So I think I had like a little thing that leaned towards that more naturally. But then later I got into more like hardcore raps and
But
just
content-wise,
lyricism.
those records, why did they speak to you?
You know, a revolutionary mindset, very like taking no prisoners, no victim mentality, flipping the script, you know, and not using your past against you before you in many ways, you know, and to believe that there's a way out of that just through your gifts and to be able to have that as your therapy when you got no capacity to get that support anywhere.
I think for me, like I said, I consumed albums, bro. Like I remember I used to go to a website and download like the release dates and give them to this Irani guy at Liwa Center in Abu Dhabi, and he would hit his boy in Canada or the States, and they would ship him 1 or 2 copy of these albums. So I was getting obscure albums and listening to everything between the age of like 13 to 17. Right? So I consumed records. I didn't like one of my favorite albums is Crew, The Dirty 30, but nobody ever goes to that record. But that album was very formative for my music making, you know?
So you're saying you didn't choose necessarily the records that came to
That
you?
hit me. No,
Yeah.
I mean I did. I sent a huge list.
Okay.
And he would stock them, and then I would buy whatever I wanted from that collection.
Gotcha.
But like I discovered Outkast by mistake. I hadn't ordered that album. He just had it in stock, and they had, you know, on the cover of the CDs they had naked girls on it, right? So they would put black marker on it. Remember I bought that shit and I got rid of the black marker. But anyway, to go back to Allah.
But you know what's interesting? Just as a side note,
Sidebar.
just as a sidebar, because it's like an international thing. Because at the same time that you were in Abu Dhabi, you would have been going. I had already come back from Kenya.
Yeah.
Right? I lived in Kenya for almost 4 years.
Yeah.
And during the Gulf War, that's when it happened. So I was there from '89 to about '93, and that's how I also received. I would hang out in front of the American embassy or the Canadian embassy. And when young soldiers would come, I would have like
That's
a
crazy.
collection of tapes that I was like ready to let go of in order to get whatever was new, because you only had like 2 channels. There was there was no Rhapsody.
Yeah.
Like I just discovered Rhapsody on Much Music, and then we left, that
Yeah,
summer.
same
So
with
I was
me.
like, no. So I brought like as many videos as I could. I watched them, I
VHSs, yeah,
memorized them.
me too.
And then it's like tape exchange on the
Yeah.
streets of Nairobi, trying to get, usually through American soldiers, like GIs that are about to ship off.
Yeah, man. Crazy how the music comes to you. So I definitely think like in the content, when it came to Islam, Islam was such a natural thing in my life. It wasn't like I was born into the religion, and it was part of my home. It was like it's a big part of our heritage and our culture. Not everybody is Muslim where we're from, but like the community that we were surrounded by was mostly Muslim at this point in history in the Arab world, right? And the nation and 5% knowledge that was in the music brought me closer to the way my parents practiced Islam. Because I guess the symbolism that you saw on Rakim Allah's jackets, or like these things were very common for me to see. So there was a direct connection, and I probably didn't realize it till after I started making music, and like I was under attack as a Muslim in North America, where I found like how to communicate the mix of like Public Enemy, Rage Against the Machine, and Rakim and Nas, and like all this like more esoteric kind of like ethereal verses.
Yeah. Speaking of let's use a broad term of Arab hip hop, and on the Anglophone side, right, on the English speaking side, I'm thinking probably where would you say that where did that start to emerge? Like who were some of the first, I guess,
English Arab MCs?
Yeah, and my question is, was it in the States, or are you thinking about England? Now, for some reason, I think maybe England had
I'm sure there were guys in England. One of the guys on the Jungle joints is actually Iraqi, not Apache Indian, bro, but one of those guys was.
Yeah,
but he
was chanting?
Yeah, he was a chanty man.
Right.
It was more reggae in London. So here, when I came to North America, obviously I came into this like 2000 era rap. Canada was kind of picking up around us. The first show that I went to when I was 13 here, I saw Beastie Boys and Bad Brains and Shades of Culture, right? So like that was my first exposure to Canadian hip hop. Then the Arabs that I saw here were rapping in French when I moved back, but then a few emerged in North America, mostly in America. I would say like Omar, Effendum, was the first I discovered, but before him there was like Will, who used to rap. Now he's a professor. You've got a Patriarch, who came out the States, and then Niz and Ragtop and all those guys, the Palestinian guys that were coming up. So like they slowly, you start seeing Arabs from the Levant in America come out, not North Africans, right? But I think what that did was it galvanized a whole bunch of young Arabs that, because if you go to New York, every other bodega is run by a Yemeni dude.
Yep.
So that's a whole family, and then they have kids, and those kids live in New York and experience on the day-to-day hip hop all around them. So like, it just started multiplying like crazy. So I can't really tell you the beginning. I know who are the first within specific communities.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in many ways, we're talking about that era. You're part of that movement as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And Belly, too, from Canada is a big part of that movement. Yeah.
You mentioned North Africa. You mentioned French-speaking rappers. Obviously, I grew up on French hip-hop, and you can't dissociate French hip-hop culture
absolutely not, no.
from North Africa and from the Maghrebi communities in France, right? And a lot of the early actors, were Algerian, Moroccan descent, Tunisian. And to a certain extent, that informed also like the identity of hip hop in France, right? A lot of rappers, even from other like sub-Saharan origins, were Muslim as well, right? So Islam was very present in French hip hop lyrics from early on. And I was actually wondering, because you mentioned you grew up on Algerian rappers from Algeria, obviously. How much of that French hip hop that was being performed by cats that were maybe of Algerian descent did you guys absorb, and how much did you like envision yourself in that as well?
Interesting. I mean,
and to be honest, even you talk about R&B, some of the early R&B singers in France were also, right?
Maghrebi descent,
exactly.
Mostly, yeah,
right?
For sure. I think there's been my relationship was different because I was very young and I was not into hip hop when I was there. But at that time, it was for us an extension of us going on in France, and I think we still feel it to today with soccer, football. But like it's just, but like within sports or within music, there's always this pride thing going on. But whether we like it or not, the experience was different in Algeria than it was for maybe Maghrebis in France, And the real relationship is that the only way to make it is to go to France, is to go out there and to feel like you do have a chance there, and you do have a chance, you know. Otherwise, there was not much room for that back home, and I didn't know that many rappers back home besides that one I had mentioned. It's only later that I discovered, maybe within like a 10-year span, a lot more hip hop started to emerge in ways that we can listen to it, because YouTube started popping up for everywhere, not just, you know, here. And I think that's how I reconnected with it, and found out, okay, there's an actual real identity that's dissociated from France, that's dissociated from the States. It's like its own flavor, you know, its own, but it's definitely inspired a lot by American hip hop, I find, in the swag and the approach of flows. And when it came to French hip hop, of course, the influence is there between like the expressions you would use, but I found it really cool that most rappers maintain this Algerian thick accent even when they speak French, you know? So you wouldn't even think it's French, you think it's part of Derja, you know? Right. So I think personally it's different, you know, it's different back home. There's its own voice going on right now, its own swag, its own style, also even the backing beats. But now I see that there's like a back and forth going on, because the flavor of the Maghrebis blowing up in France, who identify as French, essentially, as well, you know? Point, yeah. But they're huge, you know, whether it's like Soul King, Piensa, you have like in the new school era as opposed to the old school one, there's always this connection that reminds you of back home, and that has like a flavor from back home. Even the auto-tune there sounds like Rai, right. You know? So, but now it's going back and forth, meaning that now the swag that's popping in France is also being emulated in Algeria, but with Derja.
You know, it's crazy. You talk about Islam and you talk about French hip-hop. Like, French hip-hop was really what made me confident enough to share my religion in the music.
That's amazing.
Like, to share my practice in the music. Like, I think I heard it in America, but it was a bit different to my experience of it. And that's when I started teaching, you know, educating myself and reading books from the nation and reading the autobiography of Malcolm X and reading more about Malcolm and listening to his speeches. But I think the French dudes like Freeman, specifically Freeman's album, and L'École du Micro d'Argent, that's I Am, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so those two albums, again, came to me through my sister.
Okay.
And were like, holy shit. And I'm sure it influenced Nawad and Nawaf too, how they made the beats too, right?
Yeah.
For sure. And I mean, you're in a particular situation too, right? Because I mean, you're born in the Emirates, right?
I was born in Dubai, yeah.
You were born in Dubai, of Iraqi parents. Came up here, went back, did your teenage years there, and what type of school did you attend in?
I went to like an international school.
Okay.
Yeah.
In English?
In English, yeah.
Okay, right? And then you come back here, but then you also have this French thing, right?
Yeah, of course.
It's part of you, even if it's, you know, nebulous sometimes, but...
My father was, you know, he put me in high-level French in high school.
Okay.
So I maintained my French, and I would come back here every summer, so... You know, there was still a connection.
Yeah.
And I think when I came back, even though I went to English university, the French was just natural for me. I kept it, you know? So when I listened to the music, I understood it on like 3 levels. I understood it on this like hip hop core. It's almost like, you know, baseline feeling that we all recognize and know what it means and what it feels like. And then there's the language, which was the French language. And then there was the Arab experience. You know, even though we're not Arabs, it just felt Arab to me.
Well, that's the really interesting thing because, right, we're talking about, so you obviously have a huge connection with I Am.
Yes.
I Am, pioneers of French hip hop, right? You were handpicked by Akhenaton to do a record, which is out now.
Yes.
And the title
of it, crazy right now.
Yeah, it is crazy. And I think this is something that everybody's realizing, but maybe Meryem's still like, okay, yeah, I did a record with my boy, you know? But I think I Am is very important in that story because I think it's a reflection too of what we were saying, the influence of, you know.
And it was a bridge.
And the bridge, of course.
With all these worlds, you know, from between even North Africa to the States to France, right?
Yeah, for sure, exactly, right? And then being from Marseille, which, you know, a lot of people in Marseille say that Marseille is not facing France, it's facing Africa, right? And their whole concept obviously was Egypt, ancient Egypt, the monikers they took on, you know, the concepts, and also they even, you know, there's like they got samples of historians talking about Marseille was attached to Egypt back in the days, et cetera, right? So they're like looking at this almost like pan-Mediterranean thing, right? And like you said, there's one dude that's of Algerian descent, Another one who's Pied Noir, right, of Spanish descent, but born in Algeria. And the other guys, are from different nationalities. But this identity is extremely strong, right?
Yeah, man. It was the Wu-Tang. It was the Wu-Tang of France,
exactly.
right?
But also, like, let's not forget that Akhenaton is a Muslim.
Yeah.
And he does speak about, in many of his verses, his knowledge is like pretty much displayed on all of his work. But I think that was something that he didn't shy away from as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the only point I wanted to make there, because you mentioned Sandhill, and I remember when I first heard your records, the beats just got me. I was like, the way you guys were flipping those.
The clouds,
my track was Clouchy.
Yeah, of
course. Right? And it reminded me a lot of the stuff we heard from I Am, because I Am, back in like 88, 89, they were sampling, samples from the Middle East, from North Africa.
Yeah.
They were integrating that in a way that nobody was really doing.
Even the drum sounds, if you like Commodore 64, like that whole era you're like, this is like French hip hop drums.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. I mean, if you think about like when we heard El Chien or Bladi,
yeah,
it's crazy, bro. So like our dream was like we want the Arab orchestra with the knocking primo drums, like that's the dream.
But a lot of like samples from mainstream American tracks were from Middle Eastern, like
there's a whole era of it.
Hits.
It came around for sure.
This one's for the culture. I'm sick and tired of see my people getting tortured on top being lectured. Back then blacks were too hot to handle. Peace to Vlad and team who put me on the bill. I still chill late night, I'm here trying to bear. The sun's coming, yo. Don't even verse in the rear view. There's no day off like Ferris Bueller. These days I chill, I feel like Yoda. I woke up and I swang like Balboa. Leave a few on the concrete, they ain't trying to see me eating. Isolating, they living a lie. Kids have been loud, but their life is a B-side. This is the way I keep my mask on like I was Mandalorian. Whatever they stole to give themselves confidence. Could feed my fam on the African continent. Good God.
Just like this, I am saying la la.
Say la la.
No match. The cosmos of a pachanga. Good God. Look at just land this, I am saying la la. We're dancing on the stars with a pocket full of liquor. Guess all these sounds crazy to me. Oh yeah, see.
No, this is for you, Vivi, because of course, Algeria is part of the Arab world, but there's sort of multi-dimensional identities that are in there as well. The Berber is what I'm thinking about. We know that recently you were also on the Maghrebi Spotify list.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to ask you a question about... Is what?
Apple Music.
Apple Music?
Maghreb. I was like, oh snap, it's a genre now, That's huge.
So I wanted to ask you about like that part of the identity. Like how do you feel and how does that inform like the type of music that you make with respect to the Arab identity, the Berber identity, the African identity? How do you navigate those?
Wow, that's a question of a lifetime, Habibi. The artistic identity versus the actual definition of your personal identity, and it's so weird because you would think it's simple. I'm just Algerian, right? But no, it's not. There's so many worlds within Algeria that cohabitate. It's different tribes, and even though we are all one people, we do have different influences from south to north to east to west, and that comes with different languages and et cetera, that end up connecting and understanding each other. But even in the style of singing, you would travel 1-2 hours and you would think you're almost in a different culture completely, and you get to learn from their dishes and the way they sing and the way they do this, and you would know, okay, this is east, this is west, this is south. So it's very defined and rich within itself. So there's like a war of identity even there, because a lot of people, either they're like, I am Berber, and really claim it proudly, whether it's Kabyle or people from the Sahara, like the Tuareg, or but the real Berbers don't claim themselves Berbers. They call themselves as per their tribe's name, I'm Shawi, I'm this, I'm that.
So Berber is just like a general
it's
sort of
it's
term,
a white man's
yoke.
thing,
Exactly.
Berber comes from, the word barbarian comes from Berber.
Yeah, exactly.
You know that?
No, Berber came from trying to say that they're barbarian?
No, like they created that term from that tribal
Okay, because Berbers are not called Berbers within Berbers.
Yeah, that's what
It's
I'm
called
saying.
Amazigh.
It's an
you know?
outside. It's an
Yes,
outside.
Amazigh, and it means free man, like free human. But that encompasses a bunch of tribes all the way horizontally through North
Yeah.
Africa,
Even
all the way to
ethnically-
Egypt. Like a lot of
even
like
ethnically diverse,
Egyptian
yeah.
pharaohs
Yeah,
were of Berber descent, you know. So, and whether it comes from like the whole like western side between Mauritania and like Morocco, but this is what connects us. And when you go back in terms of our true origins or cultures, when we're thinking about the concept autochtone, right? Like when we think about who are the natives of this place and how did it become what it became today, you know? So everybody kind of keeps that alive with oral traditions. Otherwise, it's only the imprint of colonizations that stayed as like general identities, which is the Arabic language, colonization, French, colonization. Everything that's actually authentic to us is taught within the families, you know, within the people that are still connected to that root, you know? It's just in terms of identity, just to tell you, within Algeria, within itself, there's like xenophobia and racism within ourselves, you know? And forget about neighboring issues or like, how do you identify as, are you African or not,
Do
you
you
know?
find like an opportunity to help reconcile those differences
Yeah,
through
that's
the
what
music? Is that
that's what I
something-
hope to do. But you know, at one point, I think I understood that it was not a one person thing. You know, you create your own understanding of your identity and your journey, and then connect it artistically. Because as artists, we get influenced and inspired by all types of cultures too, especially within nomadic. You know, we know that we're not limited or bound by only our own. You know, and what happened to me in the process of creating music or learning to learning different styles is to have this like yearning to create my own sound that bridges all of these elements of my identity, of the cultures that shaped me and raised me, and also to give a voice like there's a gap, you know, and to find that gap, how to like fill it, you know, in a sense, and like create that bridge that truly sonically makes you travel through it, you know. I think we start doing it through hip-hop a lot, obviously, because we get to sample our own cultures, things like that. But even within that, like, it's an education of its own, of whether you're Sahrawi, whether you're from like the desert, or whether you're Kabyle from the north, which has more Celtic like touches to it, whether you're like from the east with all these flutes, and or the west that sounds almost like Morocco as well, like certain tribes from there are super connected. And then you have the popular stuff, you know, the popular sounds and cultures that have nothing to do with the tribal sound, you know, like Rai and certain traditional tracks. So within that, within our country, there's so much to identify with. So you need to already know where you're from within that. And when you don't, you just identify as Arab, which to me is because you don't really know your roots. You don't really know who you are. This is part of your story, but not all of it. And ethnically, actually, DNA-wise, you're barely Arab. You're first and foremost Amazigh, and you're African, and Arabic is a culture that came and pretty much got spread through Islam. And whether we want to say that it got embraced or it got presented by force, is still a colonization, a cultural colonization of a sort, you know? Religion also is a sort of colonization. We all know that. It's used to colonize a population. So if you're having an Amazigh population that has its own belief system, and then now Islam is being imposed, you can't say that that just came from that area, you know? It was brought to you. And that's the story of Islam, you know? It traveled to those places, and then it integrated within that sense of identity, because the faith was stronger even than you know, the fact that you're Arab or not. It's just you identify with the faith first. The faith is practiced in Arabic. Most of us don't even master real Arabic language, you know, but they will master the Quran, you know, so things like that. However, you have the identity of Amazigh that are not Muslim, that are Jewish originally, or that are Christians, or just animist, right? But now it's about finding a way to just embrace it all as part of your story and part of who you are, as opposed, I think for a long time I had resistance. At one point I rejected the Arabic part of my identity. I rejected the Algerian part of my identity, because I was like, I'm a human with no boundaries and no borders, and like, you know, like I'm a universe itself.
Oh, the youth.
You know?
In my 20s were playing.
At one point I was an atheist for like 5 minutes, and I was super heavy
Wow.
into like metal music and like it was just
It's
all
true.
of these
Forgot about
parts.
that one.
You
Remember?
also had the Algerian string bag, so I'm shocked that you were rejected.
For 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But it was just like that way of trying to find who you are outside of what you were told. Maybe I'm going too long on this.
No, it's
answer,
okay
but-
because you're talking about home and being displaced from home, but then also finding home in other places.
Well, he's talking about the identity and the
And
different
and that's
identities.
linked. It's always going to be linked
Yeah.
to identity, right? Because you're also talking about everyone has an indigenous culture that they draw from. Something original of you is it speaks to you, it calls you, and sometimes that requires geographically to move back as like a homecoming. And I know that both of you have had that kind of experience rather recently. It was celebrated. I know that you went on a personal trip. It had been a long time since you had gone. And then now recently you went and did a tour. So you got to see like a wider scope of Algeria many years later, obviously, since you've left. And for you as well to go back to Iraq, congratulations on that as well. I was so proud just to see it. And I know it's been a long time coming because you've been rapping about Iraq forever, bro.
Absolutely. It took a long time for that one to manifest. Shit.
Right?
20 years
One of
later.
the songs we had put on the Canada Cuba Get Down was your sort of your rendition of I Used to Love Her.
Yeah, the
which
Iraq
was called
joint.
Iraq.
Yeah.
Right? So beautiful
Quite
track.
literally.
Beautiful
With a
song,
Portuguese sample.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But just for the sake of, just give us an idea. It could either be like, did it trigger, certain things like sights and sounds, or maybe from your perspective, what you had imagined, what it was like, and from you coming back, from being there and then, but like almost like getting the fuck out of Dodge and then coming back and rediscovering parts of you maybe that you didn't know,
Even in the context that like this particular trip where you did music, you performed across
and you're being
your
you,
country.
like you're being the Meryem that we know.
Yeah. I'm not downsizing anything. I'm just doing what I do. It's
But you're so humble, stop.
No, I'm just saying I'm not trying to hide Canadian Meryem from Algeria.
It's there, it's lurking.
Yeah. Let me out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got to actually rock out, on Algerian stage with an Algerian crowd who was feeling it, and it was going crazy for not just the rapping but the singing, whether it was in English or whatever, So I feel like now I do have a space there, but 100% what you just said is it's a light switch. Definitely like something went pew in the last year. Especially because I got to connect with beat makers from there and MCs from there, like crazy MCs, like sick MCs. And just a bunch of musicians and artists that are really into the same quest, I think, which is to like bridge that gap between what we all love to listen to worldwide now, even like how Afropop has made its way all around the world. And but yeah, so it was just like to be like, oh, can we bring our own touch to this mix, And now people are doing it, and it's fly, and I want all parts of it. I want to work with them.
I saw a footage of you, which you posted.
How else would
It was
Right,
in TMZ,
yeah.
basically.
Just to be clear,
I got a VHS tape of you going back to your building where you grew up.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know how long it had been,
Yeah.
and what was that like? What was the feeling when you got out of the car and walked towards that building?
Yo, it's so crazy. Every time I'm there, I get like immediately emotional.
Yeah.
Like I just always be like, and I have to hold it back, But my chest gets tight. I have a lump in my throat, and
Was it any different this time?
Nah. I mean, yeah. Actually, I went twice I went in 2022, and that was the first time in years I haven't been back. And every time it's new people that left or people that passed or whatever it is that changed kind of the demographic. So every time it's very emotional. But also it reminds me that I still have a home there. Every time I get to sleep over at a neighbor's house, get invited to eat, like I just have to appear.
It was a homecoming trip. I know it was much longer for you since you had been there, right? How long had it been since you went to Iraq?
35 years.
35 years. And last time you went, what was the context?
I was leaving that region to immigrate to Canada.
Okay. And he talked about sights, smells. What are, like real quick, what is like an effective memory that you have?
Of
Sight,
when I was
smell
6?
Of
Or
your
now?
country, of Iraq. No, back then, as a child.
Fuck. It's hard to describe the smell, but
Any type of sensory memory.
it just smells like fresh. there's like fresh flowers mixed with like benzene and dust and like the smells from your home, from your grandparents' home, which was like coffee and tea and frozen Kit Kat bars like in the freezer. But like the natural smells were these like earthy smells, like because I was there in the 80s, you know what I mean? I was there in 88, 87. So like it was still hot in the Saddam streets, but it was they hadn't experienced any US wars yet. You know what I mean? So there was still a bit of glory. Like when I went, I remember I bought a Baghdad like Lego set, and my mom put it in the bag, and that bag got lost when we immigrated here. So like that visceral memory of holding those Legos and building Baghdad and then putting it in the bag and not getting back is so metaphorical for that long period that I didn't have with it.
And did some of those feelings come back?
Yeah, absolutely.
You made the connection.
I didn't cry when I landed. I walked out and I was like, I thought I would cry, but I walked out and I was just like, yo, I've been here before. It was like re-entering a level.
Your cells know.
Yeah, like my body knew I was, and it was just like, it was uncanny, bro.
So what I was saying is,
thinking about it, bro.
yeah, that's it. So I saw it through your posts, not a VHS tape.
Yeah.
And then I know you went there also, like it was like a cultural
shoot.
assignment as well, to shoot and everything, right?
I like how you put that cultural assignment. Cultural assignment. I like
it is. It is that.
Cultural
I called you a cultural agitator.
Yeah.
What I noticed, right? And I mean, I consider I know you well, but we don't. There's time, but we've had our moments. You know what I mean? Like I consider you close.
Of course.
And your smile.
Yeah, I was happy, bro.
That smile is a different smile, Narcy, man. Yeah. That's what I was telling these guys. I was like, that's the smile of somebody who's home.
Yeah.
Home in every way.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the picture in question.
I couldn't find the picture.
We're looking everywhere.
I projected it.
No, I know what you're talking about. You're probably
it's you. I think you're sharing a meal
it's
with
me
your
and my
friend.
homie laughing.
Yeah.
Me and Moha laughing. Yeah.
But but I know that I know that feeling.
Yeah.
In a different context, but I felt it through that photo.
Yeah, man.
So we were mad happy for you.
Thank you, bro.
Yeah.
Very happy, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, for me it was like I undid a lot of programming that was put in the span of 5 days. I undid so much. I deprogrammed so much that when I came back and I was like, okay, I got to go into this next phase of whatever I'm doing, because I went through a bit of like what am I going to do with myself throughout the pandemic? Like, do I want to keep doing music? Am I going to keep touring? Like, what am I going to be to sustain for my family, And going to Iraq was like, it helped unlock some shit, but it also helped like really mix up some other stuff for me to rethink how I'm presenting whatever I'm presenting,
And beyond what you put out there, right?
Yeah.
In the way you wanted to, like how much do you see the artistic scene happening, within all measure?
In Iraq?
In Baghdad.
Man, they're the photographers and the videographers, the DOPs, we started seeing artists we always saw artists, like, and Sundus was really in the fine arts and visual arts space, so she connected with a lot of Iraqi artists at that time. And then we have a few OGs that are in the diaspora that are now really getting recognized for their work. And then you have these young photographers that we discovered during the revolution that happened in October of 2020. I think it was 2020 or 2021, pardon me. But like, those people became the new wave of artists that came out of there, and they're amazing, bro. They're between the age of like 17 and 25, crazy DOPs, story writers, filmmakers. When I went to Baghdad, bro, the first thing I felt was, I remember landing and I'm like, yo, am I bugging? Or like, it feels like when I'm landing in New York. There's like patches of green land, patches of earth, and the next thing you see a big city, and then you land in and it's all lights, and it had this like OG Arab city feeling that I'd never felt on that scale in my life, in my adult life, right? I've been to Beirut, I've been to all the major Gulf cities, but when you get to Baghdad, you're like, this is the matrix of this shit, Like, this is what really built and the city itself is built so long ago that code is present in these cities, So, yeah, bro. I urge everybody to go to Baghdad. Had I not been a hip-hop artist, I would have found my own way to get to Baghdad. But the way we did it, was directly connected to me making music, you know, and being recognized for what I do in my community. So it's like a blessing.
A wise man once said, I never thought that hip-hop would take me this far.
Well, I guess, yeah, we're going to wrap it up, man.
Thank you.
I know we could talk about this for days, and, you know, this doesn't mean that we don't have to stop. We can always talk.
We can always talk. But I just want to end this by saying you guys really like came at a time in my life where you like saved my life. I was in a downward spiral. I had lost friends. So Nomadic is very important in my journey, you know? And meeting Meryem was also through Nomadic was a very huge part of my journey, you know, and still is. So like, yeah, thank you guys, man, for always creating the platform and for creating a family that we all needed, I think, you know?
Yeah.
There it is. There it is.
There it is.
Yes, big track.
Did you say something?
Ladies and gentlemen.
Trop long.
What the hell you talking about?
Trop long.
Pero si ya hemos empezado.